This is 1985 Under an Iron Sky from Thin Red Line Games. We are playing the campaign game and we are most of the way through the Warsaw Pact land movement phase. This is really the phase where a lot of the actual action takes place as individual units move, and moving triggers combat, attacks by by support units of all different types. So it can go, even a single movement can actually escalate into quite a big sort of conflict. Now, in terms of the game, because I did a surprise, so I did the turn zero movement, which allowed the Warsaw Pact to inch their units a bit closer to the border. At the same time, we've got we did the NATO, the good units like the Germans, the Americans, the French and the British were also able to reply by a little bit of movement, but only 10 movement points instead of 20 that the Warsaw Pact could use. We've got first turn. We're playing weather, and the weather is bad. Now that's really thrown a spanner in the works for the Warsaw Pact attack, because movement in tactical mode is extremely difficult because it's double the normal costs. Right, you can move in road mode, which is fine. The only problem with that is because of civilian panic on the first turn, you can't actually use road mode east of the Rhine in West Germany. You've also got the problem of the border minefields, which add another 2 movement points onto units crossing, Warsaw Pact units crossing the border. So that's really slowed down things. We mobilised the East Germans, which was probably not a very good idea because the East German units are pretty poor, and we triggered a revolt. Now that revolt's actually been crushed, but we've also got other issues like Warsaw Pact area. Countries can go into revolt if we don't maintain at least a garrison of a couple of divisions in each of the subject countries. Well, I think it's only Poland, East Germany and Czechoslovakia. I don't think Hungary counts because Hungary can only deploy a slight bit of their army into the northern European sector. We've got other things. There's a couple of amphibious landings in Denmark, which the bad weather doesn't stop that from happening. The Danes have to throw on a dice thing to see if they immediately surrender. They decided they're actually going to fight on, but there are other surrender triggers that can come into effect. We've got air superiority that has been done. So if you see these areas, these are where, say, that's a Warsaw Pact air superiority area, and that's a NATO one. They're actually based on these big white hexes called mega hexes that you see them running around there. If you've got air superiority, it gives you advantages like you can just move, you can automatically intercept, and if you intercept, you just go back into the air superiority box instead of being actually flown and used if you do it normally. We've had battle for Berlin that took place and is still going. There's an Allied hedgehog in there. The French units were overcome in Berlin. We've still got quite a bit of activity waiting to happen along the border, where we've got all these unused ones. The ones with the orange cube have effectively already been activated for this turn. One thing I will say about the game is it can get very fiddly, especially as you've got to track certain things like flak ammunition and artillery ammunition. It's a bit annoying having to actually track those. I seem to remember that on the original game, the Next War, you didn't have to track ammo for anything, but I may be wrong about that. Also, the way the air war now works, it's a lot more complicated, or it's a lot more realistic, but I would say it's a lot more fiddly as well. And it could be really, if you used operational areas, the aircraft can only conduct missions from certain distances from megahertz from their base, it would get so complicated that I would have trouble continuing the game if that was the case. But you don't have to. Anything else I want to say? There's quite a few events that were triggered in the event table, which just looks at what's going on in the bigger war, off into the North Atlantic and stuff like that. But the net effect of that was nothing. The two events that did trigger both counted each other out. So I think anything else I want to say? A moment. Yeah, there's various restrictions on certain units on the first turn. We've mentioned civilian panic, which effectively makes the use of autobahns and road modes extremely difficult in West Germany. We've got the fact that when the East German revolt was in place, East German units couldn't move out of the country, they couldn't attack anything. Also on the first turn, the Warsaw Pact units have got a minus 10 point movement point event tied to them. This is because they're not particularly ready for the attack. The Soviet ones are fine. Similar sort of thing is going on in the Allied area, that you can only the GB US German units don't suffer from that 10 movement point penalty. You've also got the fact that, don't forget, the weather is awful, so it's grounding a lot of flights and it's making ground movement in tactical mode difficult. We've also got surprise. Oh, right, that's something I forgot about. The sleeper cells, as the Warsaw Pact have got the ability to launch terrorist attacks on the first go. There's what was that? I was thinking about something else when I said that. Oh yeah, there's surprise in place because the Warsaw Pact attacked on the first turn. They got a +2 modifier to their combat rolls for surprise. Anyway, that's pretty much all I want to say. The rules, they're not particularly complicated, but everything interacts. It's like a system that's like all the moving parts are working together, so it can get very, very fiddly if you're handling stuff. So if you're doing a ground attack, you've got to consider escorts, intercepts, flat batteries, the actual impact on the ground attack as well. All right, a lot of other games do that, but it's more than that. It also interacts with the air superiority system. Helicopters work differently. They come in, they're very fragile, but they move slightly different. So, as I said, it's not as easy as you might think, and it deserves its complexity rating.